Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's the Jade Gemini. This evening I am super excited to bring a review of this guy right here. This is the Spyderco Manix lightweight salt. And today for this video, I'm going to talk about what I like, what I love, what I dislike, and if it applies, what is rubbish about this knife. Before we go ahead and jump right into the video though, I want to get out of the way first some size comparisons so you get an idea of this knife. This knife has been around for quite a long amount of time, but still, if you've never held one of these in your hands, kind of be like, what size is that? So first, I'm going to start off with a knife that is very known. You've probably either owned one or held one in your hand, and that of course is the ever popular, or hated in some situations, Benchmade Bug Out. So you can kind of see this knife is definitely a little bigger of a knife in the hand. It feels the hand bigger. We're getting into that full size, while this is on the smaller size of that sort of full size knife, that sort of mid-size, full size knife, with the knife itself. You can also see, interestingly enough, you're having the same blade length here, right? Just about. But the handle is a little bit longer, but definitely something we'll talk about. Another thing I did want to go ahead and compare is just looking at the thickness of the blade. You can definitely see that the Spyderco is quite a bit more stout on the spine. It does have that full flat grind up the whole entire knife instead of having a flat right here. So definitely something cool as well, and has a pretty stout tip. It's definitely pointy, but it actually kind of goes thick, and then just at the end comes down to that fine point. So definitely something nice to see as well. Thickness as well, even though this knife itself is not the stock scales, you'll still get an idea at its widest point. It's the same as the stock contoured scales. So you can see here that the Spyderco is a bit thicker, but not by a huge margin. Honestly, you don't feel that in the hand too extremely much either. So just some cool things here. Also, another size comparison to get out of the way here before we wrap this up is the common 93 millimeter ALOX Swiss Army knife, or in this case a Victorinox Dutch Army knife. So you can kind of see what size we're getting into here. And so, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump right into our video about the Spyderco here. So the first thing that I like about this so much is just the look. I've always liked the look of the Manix series. Spydercos have this saying that they are designed in the dark, right? No, probably not actually, right? But the philosophy, the idea here is that with Spydercos, it's less about like the aesthetics. Does it look pretty? Oh, does this change? Oh, look at the way that apex goes down there and that switch. Oh, look at this little design here in the back and the way this kind of flares up, right? It's not so much about design looking pretty, and it's more about form following function, right? And the beauty comes out of that. Kind of like the 911. The 911 within itself, is supposed to be, hey, it has the back because that's where the engine is supposed to be, where God intended it. Sorry, big 911 fan. You have the cab, of course, that needs to be able to fit 2 small children in the back and 2 adults in the front. And then you have the boot, or the trunk, in the front of the car itself. And so that's sort of that form follows function here that I really like. You have the iconic leaf-shaped blade, which is definitely a Spyderco-ism, something that they kind of uniquely do. Other companies do have some here and there, but it's definitely one thing that is very much true about Spyderco. You've also got, all these different ergonomics, the choils, the way this swoops down, right? Different things about this here. And it kind of almost reminds me of that sort of like early 2000s, circa 2004, right? We're playing Modern Warfare 2, right? And all these like fish guns come out. You got like the G36C. You got, of course, the P90, right? The F2000. You've also got the AUG, even though that's older. You've got the newer Beretta ARX 100 or 180, 160, I think is actually the right term. But anyways, you got all these fish guns coming out, right, out of these advanced polymers. And it's just sort of this very form follows function sort of thing there too that I just really dig about the Manix and always have. So that's the first thing that I do like out of the way. Next thing that I do like, also kind of something that is popular on Spyderco. When I first started hearing about this, Spyderco was the first one that I saw. Other companies are doing it too. They're not the only one. Giant Mouse, Fox Knives, you know, there's quite a couple, but it is this wire pocket clip. Just really, really great for everyday carry. It is light and thin, but on this one, Spyderco does it well where it does not have flex. It doesn't like roll like this, or it doesn't move back and forth like this. It is really, really solid, you know, sitting there. But because of this black, which is also coated because this is the salt, when you actually put this into, you know, your pocket or something, this much of the knife is hidden and only this much is out. So just enough to get a little grip on, right? But nothing really super, you know, easy to see. This is a light, you know, yellow knife, being the salt series, high visibility in water, all that. But still, it stands this carries pretty deep, which is nice. And you just have black that is thin. You know, if you have it against some jeans or something, you don't even see this. Some tan cargo pants don't even see this, right? This knife is, of course, an exception because of the bright color, but as a practice of principle, it's a good clip. So I digress with that. The next thing that I do like a lot about this knife is the Spyderco lock system here, just the whole entire thing. This is, again, one of those Spyderco things, the ball lock, the ball bearing lock. Now, you might be saying, well, hold up, that's not unique. That's an access lock. No. Very much like an access lock, for sure. Same location, same idea. You pull them back to close the blade, right? With an access lock, the way that it works is you have two liners on both sides of the knife, and the steel bar lock is being forced up into these thin liners here. And you have an omega spring being pushed forward constantly into the blade. The blade on the back has this cut-in ramp that's gradual. And so as forward pressure is being pushed from the bar into that ramped blade, as it starts to wear, it should self-adjust, keeping the blade locked and reliable for a long time. Now, I like access locks a lot, right? But usually they do have a little bit of up and down play, and if you oil them, they can be a little funny sometimes. With the ball lock, it works differently. You have this sort of ball carrier group, BCG, right? But you have this sort of the same idea as a bolt carrier group. You have this carrier, and then you have the ball that is down there inside of the knife, right? And so this ball rolls, which is nice, and it actually goes in this little detent, and that creates that pocket, and that creates your actual detent that is able to flick and do things like that, right? But also on the back end, you have this ramp, same very idea, that the ball presses deeper and deeper as the knife wears. It self-adjusts. What's also really, really cool about the ball lock is, you know, some different features. First, you have this insanely massive full steel, sort of like a back lock, so you have extreme strength this way, you know, with the knife being opened. But also to break the lock, you have to go and bend this whole entire thick piece of steel or completely blow out the back holdings of, you know, this component. And if you look, it's actually supported by the casting of the entire knife shell, because it actually goes deeper than just up here. So it's a really, really strong system. Blade HQ basically tested this, and this is one of the strongest knives, beating back locks, everything like that. It's just brilliant. And it makes for a lock that doesn't move at all, right? Just completely bank vault. Also, it rolls, and it will wear a little path into the steel. So it is something that lubrication isn't going to hurt in any sort of way either. It's not going to change the way the lock, it'll just make it more smooth. It also feels really smooth, right, to open, and very much like a Benchmade, it's very, very fun to fidget, right? And it is also something that you don't have to have your hands in the blade path. You're able to drop it free. Also, like a back lock, it has retention. Also, kind of same with the bar lock, but it definitely has a lot more tension before it breaks than the sort of mushiness of an access lock. So if you don't like that sort of soft detent, this definitely has more pressure that is needed to have it to fly out, which you might like. Sorry, it's a fidget beast, as you can see, which is another thing to absolutely adore. So these are some different things to really like about the knife itself. Overall, like I said, you have the design, you have the proprietary lock, right? Great clip as well. All sorts of things with the Manix that are great. Things to love. I've actually already made a Manix video in the past, but I'll say it again. The Manix is the best ergonomic knife I've ever put in my hand. Out of over like 200 knives I've ever held. It's just that. It might have slab sides instead of being contoured, but it doesn't matter. This is very much all these indentions, this little hump here, these little traction pads that come here, the way this perfectly fits into the hand, you get here, the way your thumb places here down into the grip. This doesn't like flare up like a para, so you're right in with traction, being able to go ahead and cut. If you need to choke up, once again, boom, 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 perfect with the swell palm of your hand. This meat fat is able to give a sort of push grip for power cuts, right? Or again, you come up even more, boom, this is here. Now you're able, even though this is a bigger knife, now you're able to do those fine cuts where you just dip the tip and draw back. And because that beautiful leaf shape, you also have this sort of idea that if you hold the knife parallel like this in your hand, very much Spyderco does this thing where the blade actually has like the cutting point and the tip here and then sort of sweeps up. So you get this idea that like if this is the flat piece of paper, you can see the front of the knife is right here dipping down. So you barely cant your hand back and you are cutting into the material. You don't have to do like this to cut your box open. You barely go bloop and it's there, right? So these are just that amazing performance-oriented idea here. And that just sort of goes into the next thing that I love, that this is more of the sort of working tool, like what the knife is supposed to be. So much as a hobbyist, in the EDC community, you get into, oh, what's the Sabenza and the Hinder, and what is that made out of? And is that zirconium, right? And do I have fat carbon fiber? And it has to be this kind of micarta, right? But when it boils down to it, this is the perfect recipe for just tool, right? Kind of like simple, done, great. Well, but this isn't, simple, in the way of how everything's perfectly designed, right? But with this, you have the traction, which is a Spyderco thing for sure, the Volcano bi-directional texturing, which grips in. You have the ergonomics that are locking you in. You have the full flat grunt, amazing geometry that is a little bit thicker, so you are getting some strength for sure. But because it is that full flat grind, it just is, it slices so well. It's one of the best cutting knives. And it's like Gideon's Tactical said about this knife. This is, in his opinion, or at least the video that I saw, he said is the best EDC knife because all of this, the other thing to love is this is a 3-ounce knife. Some of the lightweights are a little bit of a slap in the face. It's like 7% lighter because they replaced G10 on a full liner with this FRN material. No, this is 39% less than the Manix 2, right? Just ballistic as far as how lightweight this is. But don't let this make you think, oh, that's a cheap knife, right? This is very stout, right? Way less flexible than the Bug Out, right? That has that problem. It is also a different type of FRN that they use here. It's like a FR FRNG or FRYN or something like that. But anyways, it's like, plasticky with fibers in it to make it really, really strong, but really, really lightweight. And also in a very advanced way, very much like the bug out, they impregnate the casting here and then pull it out. And so what you have is you have these lightning pockets that are pre-made in, but this also provides structural strength throughout the entire knife. Just really, really cool stuff that I love, this sort of really ultra tech, right? And then we have the dream realized, right? MAGNACUT. I've been waiting to get a MAGNACUT knife. I've had a couple. They didn't ring the bell. I got rid of them. But this is the perfect idea. A lightweight knife that you can cut zip ties with, that you can, cut open a bag of chicken nuggets out of your freezer and dump into the air fryer, right? Something that you need to cut open a wet box. If you did want to have a fishing knife, here you go. This is going to be one that's going to grab into your hand. Got a big old lanyard hole too, so you could, have it on the tackle box, whatever. But again, I digress. This is so much of a tool that this is going to make a perfect everyday carry, where you're having the ultra tough, you're having the corrosion resistance, you're having the wear resistance where it's going to hold an edge. Spyderco does one of the best heat treats, so I know this is not no 58 Rockwell or something despicable like that. Again, good cutting edge geometry, super sharp from the factory as well. Just what's there not to love, right? Other than, well, it's a little bit plasticky. But if you're looking at this as this is a tool, right, that I'm putting in a day in and day out, you bought one knife and that's what you're going to use, perfection. Absolute perfection here. So the biggest thing I would probably say that really got me jazzed when I saw this is also another Spyderco thing, right? And I swear I'm not the biggest Spyderco fanboy, but it is the brand, along with Victorinox, that kind of started it all for me, so I know a lot about the brand. But they have this CQI idea, right? This constant quality improvement. And the Manix is one of the ones that, it's kind of an underrated knife model. It gets shadowed by its brothers, the PM2, the Pair 3, of course the Shamans, ever popular as well. But this is one that they haven't skimped out on as well. And the biggest thing here is screws, guys. Screws, guys and gals. This knife is now able to be disassembled. In the past, they had a bi-directional adjustable pivot in the middle, like a PM2 or a Pair 3, but then had hard rivets the whole entire way through. With this, if you take this and you have some grit that you just can't get out, you have some sand that you got in from the beach, you don't want it ruining the action of the brass in there or anything like that. There's brass in there. Phosphor bronze, sorry. But you can take this apart, boop, clean it all out, put it, wash it with a hose, dip it in some oil, throw it back together, boom, you're good to go. Easy peasy, right? And I just love that. That also means the aftermarket. If I want to put some tritium, which that might happen, but if I want to put some tritium ball carrier here, or I wanted to even get a fancy Dan ceramic silicone carbide, whatever, ceramic ball bearing, right, on the inside to make things smoother. I could also do that as well if I chose to. So just a big up that now you're able to just take this knife apart just like you would a Delica, but even easier, right? The way that it is all made. Just all stuff to love. And another thing to love as well, quality doesn't come from a country, right? It comes from effort and principles set up. But this is made in Golden, Colorado, USA, Earth. Thank you for letting me know. I thought it was Mars, right? Sorry, awful dad joke, please. You can leave if you want to, but thank you if you stay. But all awful jokes aside, yeah, it's made in the United States, which I think is always a win to support, local jobs, right? That's cool. So yeah, something else as well. And generally the quality there is pretty good. Centering here is pretty good, which is also improved because they can kind of shift things with the screws instead of it bolting together and scraping the side. of the handle. So, different things to keep in mind. Now, there is some things that you could possibly say to dislike here with this knife, so that is definitely something that we will look at. So the first thing is that, well, to some, this knife would be too plasticky. And I think with this kind of knife, I don't foresee the lightweight, since it's new with the screw technology, having a huge aftermarket where, oh, we're going to make a titanium, you know, blah, blah, like you could maybe see with some of like the Para 3 lightweight that actually has, you know, titanium scales that people make for it and things like that make a whole entire chassis that replaces the FRN chassis, right? Not something important to me. Again, I like this knife like this, right? With this texture, with this ergonomic, the way Spyderco intended it, right? But might be something to throw some people off, to be honest, right? So that is one thing. The next thing to go ahead and keep in mind with this knife itself is this knife I think is a fair price, right? But it's an ultra competitive market out there with, you know, knives being able to be in M390 or S35BN and have titanium and everything and be $170, right? And this is what this cost. So you have the MAGNACUT steel, which is something that I'm sure you're paying for. You know, and it's a Spyderco made in the United States. You're also paying for that labor work as well. But, you know, overall, something that might bug some people when they get this knife. For me, not a big deal, to be honest. You know, this is a knife that was like, that's everything I've ever wanted. Buy, right? Wait 8 months to get this knife. Finally got it. But something to keep in mind, right? Another thing is because of the way this knife is made, something to dislike. Sometimes you're going to get some things where like this scale is actually higher than this scale and it sort of has like an angle, or you know, you can feel something kind of catch this way but not that way. Or like for this one, you can see that the knife itself has a little gap right there because of just the way that this scale material, you know, finished and cured, right? And then they bolted it all together, you know, and that is what that is. To me, again, this is more of a tool knife. It's not a beauty knife, but for some, that might, you know, make you mad that this liner looks to be higher than this liner or something like that, right? If you get one that is, you know, like that. So something else to keep in mind. To me, these are small qualms overall, but things I like to, from doing this, you know, hobby for so long, kind of keep in mind and kind of say out loud for you in case you're like, yeah, I don't like that. I'm not getting that because of that exact reason, right? But yeah, overall, nothing else really that I could see other than I know sometimes, so another thing to dislike is these can sometimes come quite stiff with this spring, and it does take some time to just naturally wear open. They can be overly stiff, and also in the past, I don't know about this new pivot, but with this dual adjust pivot, that's always been one that's been hard to eliminate. 100% of blade play, but also get like drop free, right? For this knife, you know, I'm not really too worried about it. It comes pretty good at a factory, so I'm probably just going to leave it like this for a while. But just something if you're somebody who cannot have that blade play at all, left to right, and but you also want to drop front shut action, just something to keep in mind with all the Spydercos in general. But I digress with all that. Nothing to dislike or that is rubbish about this knife in any sort of way, other than it took so dang long to finally get it. So overall, I think that this knife is, I think, just like I said with the Manix, it is the quintessential Spyderco in my opinion. It's got everything: the ergonomics, leaf-shaped blade, the constant quality improvement, CQI, a weird lock that's just for them, the wire clip, you know, experimenting with the newest steels, right? The volcano texturing, just everything about this knife is just quintessential Spyderco, and it is the ultimate. And it's not $300 or, you know, $275 like everything with inflation is going up in price. And it's fun to fidget, so, and it makes a nice noise when it opens up. And that's all that matters at the end of the day, right? But all jokes aside, really enjoyed making this video. And I appreciate you taking time to go ahead and watch it here. Also, just trying to tinker with some things. I actually got a light to sort of have some balance. I did a knife review on the K-Bar Ek knife, and it just looked all black and really warm. So I'm like, I don't like that. So now I've got a light to help balance the sort of CRI and, you know, have a more even light. So let me know if that looks better than older videos. If you have watched them, I would appreciate that. I'd also appreciate if you did like this video, go ahead and give a like and subscribe, as there's always more videos to go ahead and come, and I'm definitely going to be hammering down to get more into the flow of things. Just been busy with school, kids. I'm doing, you know, metric-based things to keep a schedule at work, right? All this crazy stuff. So there's been a lot on Jade's plate, but definitely there are some fantastic things to come to review, clearly. So if you like that, please also as well, go ahead and give some comments down in the description. I love fellowshipping with you guys, having any sort of questions that you do have. Most importantly, again, thank you for taking time to go and watch this video on my little channel. There's so many amazing content creators you could be watching, and you decided to watch this doofus, right? Everybody, of course, most importantly, stay safe and have a great weekend. Take care. Peace.